I'm Hazel, it's Saturday again, which makes it time to sit down and catch up on the WoW news of the week, what I've been up to, and answer some of your questions. This week, the big WoW news headline is Shadowlands release has been officially delayed. It is no longer coming out October 26th/27th. We don't know when it's coming out except for sometime later this year. So the executive producer of WoW, John Haidt, released this write-up. You can read the whole thing, but to summarize, they need more time to polish and balance the endgame systems of Shadowlands. So like the questing, the leveling content, the zones, those are pretty much in and working, but they could use some more time to make sure that things that are pretty important, like Covenant balance, are really in their best shape before Shadowlands launches, so they are delaying the release. So we're back to not knowing when Shadowlands is going to be releasing, but we do know when the pre-patch is. They made the very smart move of tucking some good news into this post by telling us that the Shadowlands pre-patch is going to be releasing on October the 13th, so less than 2 weeks away. I had pre-purchased Shadowlands, and because of that, I received this email that was kind of updating me on the delay and then offering the option to refund if I no longer wanted Shadowlands because of this delay. I do, in fact, still want Shadowlands. I'm happy to wait, so I'm not going to be refunding, but it's nice that they're offering that for people that this changes things for. I am personally really happy about the delay. I'm happy to wait and then play it when they think it's ready, and I'm just really glad that the WoW team and the leadership has both the wisdom and the ability to make a really tough decision like this when it's the right thing to do. My deepest condolences, however, go out to any of you who have already booked time off work for the old Shadowlands launch that are now unable to move it. That just sucks. I know people like that. That's unfortunate, and I'm sorry. I didn't do it, but I'm still sorry. That's awful. My favorite takeaway here is that we got pre-patch coming on the 13th. It is soon. We have a date. I'm so excited. I am looking forward to recustomizing all of my characters. I have a fair few of them, so that's going to take like a whole day. And then I have so many alts that I want to make after the pre-patch when I can make them with the new options right from the start and then level them with the new system. I have been collecting transmog, and I've noticed that I need some transmog pieces from like old quests, like leveling quests, and I figure it might be kind of fun to make characters and then while leveling them target those quests so I can be both leveling alts and like filling out my transmog collection at the same time. That sounds really fun. I also want to get catch-up gear from the pre-patch event for some of my max level alts. I'm gonna have lots to do, and I am so excited that it's soon. The pre-patch date is also a tool that we can use to kind of speculate on when the new Shadowlands release might be. And I should clarify, I know nothing. I thought they wouldn't delay Shadowlands, so clearly I'm not in the know. But if I had to guess on when Shadowlands might come out now, because of course we don't know, so all speculation, we can see that historically, most pre-patches have been 4 weeks long, with a couple of them being 6 weeks long, and then the Cataclysm pre-patch was 8 weeks long. So somewhere in that window, I'm inclined to believe a longer pre-patch, because if they made a 4-week pre-patch, with pre-patch coming on the 13th, that only pushes Shadowlands' release back like 2 weeks from where it was in the first place. And if they're gonna go through all of this effort and grief and drama of making this big, intense move to delay Shadowlands, they're probably not doing that just to buy themselves 2 weeks. They're probably gonna want a little bit more time. So I'm thinking a longer pre-patch, and that kind of brings up two possible scenarios for Shadowlands release. So in the first scenario, I see them releasing Shadowlands kind of mid to late November, with the raid releasing 2 weeks later in like early to mid December, because if they want to keep those two things linked, the Shadowlands release and the season 1 starting date, including raid release, world first race, PvP season, Mythic Plus season, all of that, if they want to keep those things within a couple of weeks of each other, then they can't wait too long to release Shadowlands, otherwise you end up having the world first race right on top of the holidays, and typically Blizzard likes to shut down for a couple of weeks at the end of December over the holidays and like early January, and it's generally, I think, considered good etiquette to not make world first raiders choose between their families and their fame. So if they do want to keep those two things within a couple weeks of each other, then they can't, then Shadowlands is probably coming kind of like mid-November at the latest. However, there's a second scenario in which they are fine with having a larger gap, and in that case, you can put Shadowlands out kind of late November, early December, even second week of December, and then have the raid release like mid to late January with just like a nice big gap in between them. The only problem with that, aside from people potentially running out of stuff to do while waiting for the seasons to open, I don't know if we're going to run out of stuff to do, but the problem with a big gap is that people are going to get more and more like legendaries, and they're going to get stronger before they get into the actual raid and stuff, which might make the tuning a little awkward for the race. That's not that big of a consideration, but it's something to think about. I would prefer them to do the second version. I would prefer to see like a December fully polished, well put together Shadowlands, and then like a nice long break before the raid opens, because the 2 weeks It's doable. You can certainly level a character and get it set up and ready to go in 2 weeks, but you know, with more time, then you have like more room to level a couple characters and try a couple different covenants and, you know, really get your feet in the roses before you have to get into any of the tough stuff. In my life this week, I am still busy squirreling around, collecting transmog and cobbling together videos, and those are the two things that I do now. I am really personally relieved at the delay because not only does it make more time for them to polish Shadowlands and have it be really great when it comes out, but it's also more time for me to make videos about it. This means that some projects that I wanted to do that I had to cut for time are now potentially back on the table, depending on how long Dungeon Guides take, so I'm really excited about that. The delay also means that I am no longer taking my road test, like, the day after Shadowlands. That was going to be a busy week. October in general is kind of packed for me. I just have a lot of stuff that happened to fall in October, and having Shadowlands taken off of that list makes me feel like the whole month is much more doable. I can kind of focus on a couple things at a time. I'm hoping the road test goes well. That's later in the month, just because if I do fail it, it's going to be a really long time before I can get another appointment. COVID has made drive testing and driver's licenses just a real nightmare to get if you never had one before. So I really hope that works out, and with Shadowlands delayed, I have more time to, you know, get some extra practice in and try to smooth out my nerves. I think it'll probably be fine. I have been driving for almost a year now, so I'm pretty confident in the mechanics of it, but I'm nervous, especially just because I have to test in a driving school car, and I won't have any chance to drive it before the test. They're not testing in our own personal vehicles because of COVID, so just some extra factors, and I'm glad that's not happening like the day after the big expansion launch, because that was just going to be a big week. And questions for this week. Drying Paint asks, you mentioned using all the things, but you changed some things. Could you go into more details with what you changed? So I eventually want to do a full video on how I personally like to have all the things set up when I'm a little more experienced in it. I'm still pretty new, so I might change some of these things, but I will give you the Cliff's Note versions of essentially the settings that I'm using with all the things to make it palatable enough for me to get me really into collecting with it, because the first couple of times that I had installed all the things, I just got overwhelmed and deleted it. So if you've been having that same problem, then maybe try some of my settings so that, you know, maybe this will work for you. I should be very clear, this is not necessarily the right way to set up the add-on, this is just what's made it comfy for me. So the first thing that I did in the all the things settings, which you can access by going interface, add-ons, all the things, I went and turned completionist mode off. What completionist mode wants you to do is collect every version of a transmog item, even if you already know the appearance. It wants you to get everything that could give you the appearance, even after you already know it, and that is a level of dedication that is not in me. I'm not doing that, so I turned that one off. I also enabled the I only care about my main option so that it is not bugging me about appearances and mounts and stuff for other classes and armor types. Under the which things that you want to track, I recommend turning things off unless you really want to be working on them and right now. Any of these options, they're not permanent, right? So you can disable some stuff, and if you decide later that you want it, you can go in and turn it back on. But just to get started, it's so much easier if you can just narrow down the scope of what you're looking for. So this is what my collecting looks like. I, in particular, turned off achievements and quests, even though achievements I may turn back on at some point. I would like to collect achievements eventually. I'm just not ready to start yet, and it was causing so much extra clutter in my list that having that turned off works better for me for now. So that's what my page of things that I'm tracking looks like. Under unobtainables, I checked literally everything on this page. If it's not obtainable anymore, or even if it's under a holiday that's not up, I am not interested. There's probably something you can do in this page to have it show you items for holidays that are currently active. I haven't figured that out yet. That's a later me problem. I've just been manually collecting holiday stuff when the holiday comes up. Over in interface, which is basically just tooltips, here is what my settings look like. Turning off the source locations and the shared appearances in particular cleaned up a lot of clutter in my tooltip. I'm getting most of my all the things info from my mini list, so I don't need that much info in my tooltips. I like to see if I am mousing over a mob that can drop something that I need, but beyond that, the extra info was a little much. So that is what those settings look like. And then under features, I turned off everything labeled automatically open. I don't want anything to automatically open. I find that my relationship with all the things works best when I'm the one calling them. You know, I'm the one summoning it on an opt-in basis. So if I log in and I'm not in the mood or I'm up to something else, it's not showing up to tell me all the things that I could do. I want to pull up that list when I'm in the mood for it. And to that end, it was recommended to me, and I have been really enjoying having a keybind to pull up my mini list. So under key bindings, add-ons, all the things, I made a keybind so that I can just really quickly pull up my mini list, not the main list, the mini list. And what that is it's just a checklist of the things that you could get from the zone you are currently in. So it's kind of relevant. You can kind of pull it up whenever you're like, I wonder what's around here. But this way it doesn't pop up every time you go somewhere when you had like other things to do. It's been great fun playing with all the things, though, especially while we're just kind of killing time waiting for new content to come out. I go somewhere to do something, and then I find 4 other things that I could do on the way, and then an hour and a half passes, and I'm like 5 steps away from the thing that I started at, but I got like a toy I didn't know, and I saw a quest I didn't know was there, and I found that there's a thing I can camp or farm. There's a lot of content in this game that I apparently never knew about until I installed all the things, so it is fun to mess around with if you have the time. William asks, will the pre-patch change anything with polished pet charms? This is a valid question, especially considering how it worked when we entered BFA, but absolutely not. There is nothing changing with polished pet charms in the pre-patch or the Shadowlands launch. You can still get them from the same things, you can still spend them for the same things, and when Shadowlands comes out, you'll be able to spend the polished pet charms that you already had for new Shadowlands stuff, so feel free to save them up and hoard them for Shadowlands. There is no conversion happening, so all good on that front. And Randy asks, Druids are supposed to be able to change their different forms at the Barbershop once Prepatch goes live. Is it just the colors we'll be able to choose between, or different types of forms? For example, will a Zandalari be able to get the same travel form option as a Tauren? So you cannot change to a different race's Druid form, but everything else is pretty much on the table. Colors, artifact forms, transmog forms, so like the Druid of the Flame Fire Kitty, that is something you can select at the Barbershop as long as you have that item collected. Glyph forms are also in the Barbershop, so your glyphs of the doe and the orca and, you know, the sentinel owl, all of those things. So if you're unhappy with your Zandalari Druid travel form, there might be a glyph that you can get to change it, but you cannot choose a different race's base form, that's all. I really like that you can do artifact weapon forms even for the spec that you're not currently in, so I can be running around in my Resto Druid, and when I shift into bear form, I can use a Guardian Druid bear artifact appearance, even though I'm still in Resto, and then I can use a feral one for cat. It's excellent. And that has been my week. If there was any other news, and there probably was, it was just obliterated from my mind by the Shadowlands delay, so it can't have been that important. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions that you would like me to answer on one of these videos, please leave it in the comments and include the word question. Stop by a stream sometime if you're in the mood, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.